Hey guys, it's Will from EDM Tips, and today I want to create a melodic techno track from scratch. I'm going to be using ARTBAT as the inspiration, and I want to show you every step of the process, going from a completely blank DAW project all the way through the chord creation, the drums, the synths, the bass, everything you need to get that really nice melodic techno sound. And this is what we're going to be creating today. Mate, that's epic! Yes! Come on! As usual, you can download this project file, all the samples completely free below this video. Okay, so without further ado, let's hop into the DAW and get it done. So I've opened up this blank project, obviously. First thing I'm going to do is select a melodic techno tempo, so about 124 BPM. I'm going to save this. It's going to be based on ARTBAT, so what I'm going to call this is You Must Be Batty, Son. Okay, and next thing we want to do is create the chords. I've got my magic list, but to do that we need to know what vibe we're going for. So if we listen to someone like ARTBAT, their music is dark and hypnotic, but there are these beautiful sparse melodies as well. Anything too complicated is going to detract from that techno vibe. And then we've got these lovely chords in the breaks as well. So we've got this kind of juxtaposition between the hypnotic techno beat, and then we've got these lovely heart-melting chords in the break. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide on a scale in which to write this. Now, if you're using a modern DAW, which we all are, let's be honest, you've got these lovely controls now where you can just press a scale button and it's going to just hide all of the notes that aren't in that scale, meaning that you're never really going to hit a wrong note. So I'm going to do this in just randomly. I'm going to choose F minor. Most techno would be in a minor key and it gives it that slightly dark feel. So let's just work out these chords. I'm going to color these blue and I'm going to work it out in piano because that's going to stop any distraction from sound design or anything like that. So if we press this scale button here in Ableton, but it's similar in Logic or FL Studio, only the notes from within this scale are going to show. So let's get a simple grand piano sound on there and work out the bass notes first, and then we can build those chords from those bass notes. Now this is just going to be in the break, but we're going to use the root note from this for the hypnotic techno part as well. So let's just listen to some of these notes. I think I might start from the root note just to keep things easy. And we'll just make 4 chords. Let's make them twice as long, actually, because we want this lovely soaring techno break. So these will be our bass notes. Let's drop them down an octave. And now let's build up the chords from these bass notes. Now the easiest thing to do if you are in scale mode is just skip a note each time. We can tweak things after that, but it's a good place to start. I'm just adding the 3rd and the 5th above each root note. And then I'm going to add some 7ths as well to give it a really nice heart-melting feel. Apart from the last one, because this would be a diminished... Actually, no, that sounds good. It's not diminished. Forget I said that. Lush. What I'm going to do is a couple of chord inversions as well, and that just means dropping a couple of these notes or raising them by an octave, so they're the same note but played within a smaller range, and that's just going to make it sound really nice. So now let's listen to them. So nice. And we're going to pick a really nice preset for those very shortly. So now we've created our break chords, we can go back to the main drop of the track, which is going to be that hypnotic techno rhythm. So all we need to do, let's move these over. We're just going to use the root note of the track, which is the F, because this is F minor. So let's just create a bass line. It's going to be on every 16th, like that, to give it that really driving feel. So I'm going to use just the plugins from Ableton Live today. I'm going to get the wavetable, and firstly I'm just going to program the bass, and it's just going to be hitting that root note, but I'm going to bounce up an octave. So if we just copy loads of Fs on the 16th, and then we're going to put one of them up an octave every couple of notes. And that's going to create a really nice, repetitive, hypnotic rhythm. So let's just delete these and duplicate this first part. Alright, so let's create this sound that we want. Most of the synths in ARTBAT's tunes are based on a saw wave, and it's actually much easier to create most sounds than you might think. And you can click on the video that's popping up now for my sound design framework. But let's just tweak the envelope of this and make it really a plucky sound. We're going to switch this to mono because we don't want the bass notes bleeding over each other. Okay, now we need to add a filter envelope. So I'll take the filter down. And we're going to assign this to the same envelope. And that's just going to give us some more pluckiness. What I'm also going to do is create a key mapping using this MIDI control. So the higher the note is, the more that filter opens up. It's going to be very subtle because these notes are only 1 octave apart. But basically it means that if you play a lower down note on the keyboard, the filter is going to be closed off. And if you play one right up at the top, the filter is going to be opened up. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that effect. Okay, let's add a subline to this. Add some low end weight. We're pretty much there. Now what I want to do is just take out the clickiness, because that's the trouble with some of these plugins. They're going to be creating click even if the filter is closed down. So I'm just going to take out the high end click. So it's a smoother sound. And now let's add a bit of interest to that bass line by adding some delay. So I've got this bass reverb auxiliary channel I've already set up, but I'm just going to delete the reverb and then put a delay on there instead. Simple delay will do nicely, 100% wet. And we are going to have a very short feedback and ping pong, and that's going to help our bass line bounce side to side. So let's just feed some of this bass into that. So we can instantly hear we've got some interesting bass going on. And I've got an EQ after the bass. After the delay, just taking out the low end so we don't run into phase cancellation issues. Now let's add the kick underneath this. Really nice and simple, get a strong kick, and then we're going to go boom, 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 boom. I want you in my room. So we're going to go to Will Favorites, kicks. There we go. Let's throw that on, program it in so that each kick is only half a beat long. We don't want a really long kick tail. We might even be able to make these kicks shorter and just have the transient because we've got this lovely low end bass. So that's pretty much the techno groove already, but we need to fatten this up and get it really pounding. So first thing, I'm going to try and tune the kick to the key of the track just to see if it sounds any better. It might not, but it might just gel things together and get that low end weight even more. So I'm going to take it up to a higher octave so I can actually hear the note that the kick is hitting. And I'm going to tune it to the bass. I think that's about right. Plus 46. So now I need to take that kick back down in steps of an octave each time to get as close to 0 as possible. So I'm just going to hold shift and press down. That's going to drop this by 12 semitones each time. There we go. So -2. This is now tuned to the track, but in the correct octave for the kick. And now let's see how it sounded before and see if it's any better. I think the kick tuned to the track sounds really good in this situation, so I'm going to keep that. Now we are going to get the kick and the bass grouped together into a bus. And this is so we can gel them together and get them sounding really nice and thick and rich. So the way I'm going to do that is add a bit of saturation with the drum bus that comes with Ableton. And this is also going to add some compression. And I'm just going to use the dry and wet control just to get to a sweet spot. add some boom. Now we can tune this to the correct key. So that would be an F. And let's add some low end harmonics. Oh, that is heavy, mate. So that's with the drum bus off, and this is with it on. Heavy, heavy blood. Okay, next thing we are going to do is create the synth riff. We have got the chords, we're going to get back to those in a few minutes, but let's create now a synth riff that is going to give that real interest to the track. We're going to create 2 in total, synth riff 1 and synth riff 2. And they're both going to be cyan because that's the natural color of synths in nature. That's actually the truth as well. If you go into the African veld and see synths running around, they will be cyan in color if the light catches them right. So we are going to stick a wavetable on each of those. And we are going to create, sometimes I talk such nonsense. Don't blame me, blame my upbringing. Okay, riff 1. Here we go. Again, we are going to be working within the same scale, of course. So we're going to pick F minor and then hit the scale button, and all these notes are going to be within the scale. So first thing I want to do is actually just create some interesting riff that just brings this to life. And what I'm going to be doing is using the 16ths just before or after each beat. And that's going to make the groove and the syncopation really come to life in this track. I'm going to specifically try and use the root note, the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, and that's going to make a nice strong melody, because that's really what this riff is going to be. Can you see? I'm using the 16th interval just before the beat on the grid, and that gives it that syncopated feel. So let's just duplicate that, and we're just going to change the notes each time. Repetition is important. Cool, so that's actually a really nice sounding riff. Now we are going to use 2 oscillators in this, so I'm going to open up the wavetable, and I want to create a slightly more hollow sound. So for that, I'm going to go for a triangle wave, lay it up with this saw wave. So let's add a saw wave. Let's turn it down a bit though. And add this triangle wave. And balance the levels. That's a nice sound. Okay, I'm going to close this down again, and we're going to add a bit of a filter and tweak to make it more of a pluck. Really short sustain. Take down the filter. And again, we're going to assign this envelope to the filter cutoff as well. Same as we did with the bass line. Very similar sounds in the way they're created. Now the beauty here is when we create the interest by using delay and reverb on the auxiliary channel to create a really nice, interesting sound. Because what people will often do is overcomplicate their tracks, especially when it comes to techno, when we want to keep things simple and have just a few sounds, but then process them really well to create the interest. So let's call this synth, or let's call this riff 1 effects. Okay, now we've got this auxiliary channel. I want to add a delay, and I want to create an interesting triplet effect. So 100% wet, because it's on an auxiliary channel. We don't want the dry signal doubled up. And let's feed some of this synth riff into that channel. Okay, now I'm going to detach these two from each other, and let's just make them slightly different, and that's going to create stereo width because the delayed signal on the left and the right are going to be slightly different. Take out some of the low end. So that's already creating a really interesting stereo feel. Now, what I'm going to do is add a second delay after that, and we're just going to add multiple delays, basically. We'll put ping pong on. We're just going to have this one synced and just try and feed in till we get some interesting rhythm with that. So it's almost like crystallized and fract. It's fract. And then I'm going to add a hybrid reverb on there as well, just to smooth out that delay, because it's got some really interesting presets in this. So let's go to hybrid reverb, special, and let's choose echo flex. Yeah, so now we're getting that vibe. The last thing I'm going to do, and this is a bit advanced, and we cover this in the accelerator program as well as way more, but I'm going to sidechain the reverb from the dry signal. So we go synth riff, and I'm just going to duck the delayed signal by the dry signal so it can breathe through. And it almost sounds like it's reversing the delay now. Excellent. Okay, what's next on my magic riff? The second synth riff. So again, I'm going to just chuck in a wavetable already there. We're going to get a bit of a plucky sound, and I don't have my keyboard plugged in. Let's plug it in. Preparation is key, guys. Let's have a sip of coffee, shall we? In this amazing mug. Wow. Nice. Tastes better and better every time from that mug. Right, let's create a second riff. And this is going to be like a counter melody. They won't necessarily play at the same time. And how we arrange this track is going to be all important. So I'm going to base this on a saw wave as well, unsurprisingly. So I'm actually just dropping this each time. So it's following a particular pattern, and I don't like that last one though. That's kind of cool. I might tweak that later. And the next thing I'm going to do is just add a specific delay to that as well. And I'm doing it on the auxiliary channels just because you've got more control, as you've seen. We can EQ the signal, we can sidechain duck it. There's a lot more you can do if you use auxiliary channels. So I'm just going to use a standard delay on this as well, I think. And this is going to be a simple delay, just to add some interest. Cool. Okay, now we are on to creating the drums. So we've got the chords, which we're going to get to very shortly when we come to arrangement. But we've got the main groove of the track. Now, I'm going to turn off these synth riffs to create the drums. And what I'm going to do is just use some simple techno style drums. So I think I'm going to go for a 808 closed hat for the main 16th groove. And I'm just going to tweak the velocity of a couple of them just to give a little bit of movement and interest, as each one is a slightly different volume. And let's just play that. I might double that up and layer it with something else just to bring some more high end. This, I think. And let's just double that up. But very gently bring that in. You can pan them slightly left and right. Add some stereo width. Excellent. Okay, next thing we're going to do is add the open hat. But instead of an actual open hat, I think I'll use a shaker. So I want to keep this really nice and tight. You know, we want this really nice, tight techno sound. I could probably experiment with finding the right sound for the job that's going to fit in with all the other sounds. So what I will do is, when it's programmed in, just in between each kick, make sure it's nice and quiet. Whoops, that's the incorrect place. Taxi. There we go, in between each kick. Try again. It's just subtle. And we could scroll through a couple of sounds. Find one that just sits with everything else nicely. I quite like that. Okay, now let's find a clap. Now again, I want something really short and crisp, nothing over the top here, because that's the vibe of the track, right? This one I think I will use, but I'm going to take out this pre-transient, so we've just got the little clap there. Let's program that in on every other kick, like a house beat. And let's have a listen to it. Just bring it in really slowly and quietly. In mono, which helps us balance the levels more easily. And the mono switch is just a utility plugin on the master channel with a keyboard shortcut to switch on the mono switch. I'm going to add one more clap, I think, with a bit more high end. So I've got 2 layers of clap. So let's go to our claps again. That's got some nice high end. So let's just layer that up with the original clap, double it up, and just bring it in quietly. And we're just going to have the top end of this. Let's reduce the length. And I'm going to filter out the low end. So we've just got this bit. Okay, that's our main groove. So now let's get onto the arrangement and this lovely break as well. But first, I need you to let me know if you're enjoying this so far. Give me a hell yeah or an amen, brother, if you're feeling holy, and let me know in the comments what style of music do you want to see me cover on this channel. Is there anything in particular you're struggling with that I can help you with? Okay, without further ado, let's continue. Okay, so for these chords, I'm actually going to completely not use this piano. I'm going to create a synth from scratch, and I'm just going to create a custom pad. So I'll go to a saw wave, as usual, take down the filter so it's a bit more muted. And now we need to tweak the ADSR controls to get it into the shape of a pad. So that would be a full sustain, a fairly long attack, and a fairly long release. So they blur into each other. And now let's add some unison. Which just makes it really nice and lush and thick. I'm also going to add an LFO. Now let's open up the wavetable and see if we can do something interesting. If we get a second oscillator, with some random oscillator waveform. Let's hear what it sounds like on its own. That's nice. So I want to create some movement here. So I'm going to use one of these LFOs like this, make it a bit slower, and I'm going to assign this to the wavetable position, I think. So let's just get this moving a bit. Okay, I'm not sure I like that. And we want to take it off re-trigger so that when every note hits, it doesn't start the LFO cycle from the beginning. And we want to be able to warp this as well. So if we go to classic or no, modern, we can adjust this fold or this warp like so with the same LFO, and that's just going to create more movement. Like so. Very subtle. Just adding movement. And then with our other wave, and we're taking out the low end as well with a high pass filter. Lovely. Just a really lush, rich pad. Next thing we're going to do is create a bass for this break. So I'm just going to create another bass line here and unsurprisingly call it break bass original and color it yellow, the natural color of bass, a highly contested topic, but nevertheless I maintain my correctness. Let's call this break bass. And we want to create a nice smooth Reese bass just to underpin the notes of the bass line in this chords. That's the easiest thing to do. So I'm just going to put a wavetable on there, create a saw wave, unsurprisingly, full sustain, pretty fast attack in mono, and take down the filter and add a bit of unison, which is going to create this nice bass sound. It could create some phase issues, but because this is just a gentle break bass, it's not as important as if it was the main bass. Let's just program in this bass line that follows the chords. Probably there is a good octave. So you can see it just brings in that energy in the low end. Really quiet. Just following those same bass notes. So let's listen to it now. Oh, my computer's struggling for some reason. Not sure what's going on. So I'm going to freeze the chords. Epic, but also delicate and beautiful. And now we need something that really works with that break in terms of a melody. So I'm going to create one more. Let's just duplicate this. I won't bring in the break bass straight away in the break. That would be madness. Madness, I say, because we need to build the energy back up. I might actually flatten this so we can further add filters to it. So if our break started, we could actually have the high ends taken out like so, or we could do a bandpass filter. So if our break started like so, it would be smoother and we'd filter in with this lushness. I'd automate it to be smoother. So let's create a piano riff for this, much like in the ARTBAT track Horizon. Let's call this piano riff. And you could use a better piano, to be honest, than the one that comes with Ableton, but I'm going to use this anyway. I'd probably use the Contact piano with the Giant preset. Really like that, but I'm going to use this one today. And once again, we are just going to work in the key that we're already in. So that would be F minor, lovely. And if we press scale, we can never hit a wrong note. So let's create a really nice But we need some epic reverb on this, so I'm just going to use the global hall reverb that I created on an auxiliary channel, just with a 5.5 second delay. We'll see how that sounds. Sounds good. Simplicity is key. Okay, now let's get a bit of arrangement up in here, up in this bitch. Let's just duplicate this first part. And we're going to start without this main riff, and we're going to start with far fewer drums. Okay, no drums apart from the kick and the bass. So let's just do it. Synth riff is going to be filtered right down. You could use a reference track for this, of course. It's all about building the energy slowly with techno. So let's start filtering this up here and bring in the second riff. And then we could take this right back down when the beats come in. I'd run this over a much longer period, but just to give you an example of the kind of ebb and flow of energy you want to look for. And this might go on, you know, for a minute. Let's loop this bit. Oh, I know what we could do. Let's quickly get this in there. Break. And now we can bring in these chords like this. I'm just doing this on the fly. This would be working with this riff too, it all works. Yes, yes, let's increase that. Yes. And then you'd have a moment. And this would be the build. And then it would go back to the main drop. You'd have some effects and drums. Nice. Okay, I'm going to do a bit more work on this before I give it to you to download, but they are the main constituent parts of that. So you can pick apart the project, you can see the extra bits that I'm going to do on top of this. And yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed. Don't forget, do download this if you want it. And if you want, this was actually a question from one of my students in the Accelerator program. We've helped our students get signed to labels such as Anjuna Deep, Anjuna Beats, Spinnin'. This never happened. So if you do want to get released on your favorite labels and you want to do that as quickly as possible, do check out the program. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll catch you next time. Until then, cheers and happy producing.